Hello and happy new year, everybody, all you amazing people out there. I am Chance, and we are back today with another episode of Our Life Beginnings. And always, let's get into it. I'm bundled up because it's finally cold. Alright, so last time we had a cool little dinner party with Cove and his parents, and we ended up playing Go Fish, gambling version of Go Fish, and we ended up smoking everybody. So yeah, it was really cute and it was a lot of fun. So let me get adjusted in my seat here and let's see what Road Trip is about. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually, you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity as both your family and Coves prepared for what lay ahead. Are we road tripping with everyone? Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cope's house behind it. That's freaking cool. Alright, there's almost nothing as exciting as waking up really early to go on a road trip. Like, I have like a lot of my memories, like some of the road trips and like just the traveling in general, waking up early and like your heart is like so excited that you finally get to go. I don't know. I love it. So this is gonna be super cool to do. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best as he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. How are they going to fit everyone in this? I mean, it has to be massive. It has to be ginormous. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug. There you go. Luckily, I guess all you would have to do is sleep and use the bathroom in it and shower. Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Oh my gosh! Look at her robe! Oh my god, she's so cute. I can't. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. Me. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. Yep. You could relate to Ma, it was way too early. Personally, you were as raring to go as your mom. You felt like you were a middle ground between the two. Let's say we are the middle one. Personally, you were as raring to go as your mom. Because I feel like, you know, you're still a kid and you kind of have a little bit more energy maybe, so you're kind of more excited to go. I don't know. I can see Jamie being excited. You stretched your arms out and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from dew, but you didn't mind it. Let's see how Elizabeth is handling all this. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything new going on. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Jamie is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Oh man. As an older sibling, I don't know how I feel about that. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed, Kyra was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. Oh my gosh. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. You were fine with the arrangements, you were excited to sleep in a loft, you felt sharing a bed with your parents was going to be awkward, you were looking forward to a sleepover with your moms, you weren't too happy either, but didn't want to make a fuss, you thought it was unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor. I mean, interesting. So I'm stuck between you were excited to sleep in a loft and we kind of felt sorry that Cove had to sleep on the floor. You know what? Yeah, I think Jamie would be excited to sleep in a loft, but I do think he would probably feel it was a little unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor because he's a kid too. Like, shouldn't, if we're being respectful towards the kids and everything. After all, it was supposed to be a trip for him and his family before yours ended up coming along too. Now he had been kicked out of every bed-like space and put on the floor. There had to be another way to organize things so it was better for him. You offered to sleep somewhere else. You suggested sharing the loft with Cove. You said nothing about it though. Why not? Yeah, why not suggest sharing the loft with Cove? I think that makes sense. But Elizabeth will be mad. That's the only thing. Wait, no. She didn't want to lay in the loft. So yeah, this is perfect. Cove and I could share the loft when I'm up there. I don't mind making room for him. You took a glance over at Cove. It would be fun to have a little sleepover, just the two of you. No. That loft is too tiny for two people, even if those people are teens. The last thing we need is one of you rolling off and crushing poor Cliff beneath you, who will take over his driving shifts. The three other parents all laughed at your mom's joke. Cove simply shrugged with a relaxed smile, and you sighed as you were forced to admit defeat. Alright, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Jamie? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? You were confident you had it all? You weren't sure about that. Oh, you had to run back inside for something? You just gave her a flat look. Let's be confident that we have it all. We're good. We were ready to go. Wanted to make sure everything was organized and ready to go. You had packed the night before and set your alarm too. Yep, I'm good. That's great. We'll have to wait for the ones who weren't as organized, but we'll be heading off shortly. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, and blanket, usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things, such as a portable gaming console, pencils and paper, your favorite stuffed animal, a couple of things to read, a bag of makeup, a ball, your camera, an MP3 player with headphones. Let's do a couple of things to read. You had packed one of your old favorites and a new one you'd never tried before. You knew you'd have plenty of time for them both on such a long drive. Apparently we're into music, so we are packing an MP3 player with headphones. With so much time going to be spent driving in a car, you wanted to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. And then a portable gaming console, because yes. The drive to the Redwood National Park would take an entire day one way, so you wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling there and back. Do we need... Let's do a camera too. We need a camera. I can't believe I passed that one up. We're just gonna pack everything. It was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. I think everything else is pretty good to go. That was everything. Hey, let me take that for you, Jamie. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left it'll fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcase away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Yeah, for real. Usually she wasn't the one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything, seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. You were excited for the trip too. You weren't very excited for the trip either. You were eager to get to the destination. You were curious about the RV. You didn't feel much either way about the plans. We're excited for the trip. It was great to get away and explore new places, exactly. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start, and it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. This would be scary. Like, I would love to do a trip in an RV, but the driving part and all that stuff is kind of iffy. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out from the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls, as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress. Look at those glasses! Heck yes. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin on his slipping into place. I don't need to sleep. I've got a few miles in the old tank. I've still got a few miles in the old tank. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home, and Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Cove shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So,
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Elizabeth, did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly. Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. He won't be driving again until tomorrow. You stayed quiet. You shook your head at the ribbing. Phew, that's a relief. Just enough time to write up my last will and testament. Oh my god. We shouldn't gang up on the poor guy. It's not his driving I'm worried about. Oh man, what do we do? I don't want to be mean, because it's like they're the reason why we're here, even though everything I think is in jest. We're gonna shake our head at the ribbing. You didn't have anything to add to the conversation, but it wasn't very funny. Oh, I mean, crap. Well, I think it was funny, but I do think it was mean at the same time. I don't know. I'm weird about these things, I think. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smile tilting her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kyra wrinkled her nose in thought. Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your pink hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. You took a handful, you refused the offer. We take a handful, it's chips. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by, with a group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Mom was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You had all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Oh, this is exciting. I wonder what all it's going to go into. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-sized bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing. Get a good rest, Jamie. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
Fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the bush walk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. Alright, so we're going to put a pause on this section right here, and we're going to pick up on it in the next video. So if you enjoyed this first little bit of this section, please leave a thumbs up for me down below, and while you're there, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this so far. And as always, if you want to keep seeing more, hit that subscribe button. Bye!